If you're looking for a job and you've been applying for role after role, inevitably you've been asked to provide a cover letter. And the chances are you're providing a cover letter that's not helping you get the job. So I'm going to tell you what not to do with your cover letter to improve your chances of getting hired. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today we're going to be talking about cover letter mistakes. What not to put on your cover letter. So what is a cover letter and why are companies still asking for them? Back in the olden days, before internet recruiting was a thing, and yes, there actually was a time when that was a thing, candidates actually had to respond to job opportunities through newspaper ads. You see, there's these things called classified ads in newspapers, and companies would actually advertise their jobs there. Now, I'm being a little bit silly, but essentially that's how people used to find jobs. In the cases of a particularly hard to fill position, they may turn to a traditional headhunter in order to find those positions. Now, the difference between a headhunter and a recruiter is a headhunter is somebody that's a free agent. They kind of have their own agency, and they go off on a contingency basis to find those candidates, and they get paid on placement. Whereas an internal recruiter, such as myself, we work directly for the company and we try to find candidates, and it's just part of our daily job description. So think about it from a job seeker's perspective. You had really no way to impress the company other than your resume. There was no LinkedIn profiles that you could send them to. There was no way of expressing personality through maybe YouTube videos or simple websites that you may have set up. You essentially were relying on your resume to tell the entire picture of your employment history. And that's where cover letters came into play. The cover letter was a chance for you to talk directly to the hiring manager in a formalized fashion. And it was a chance to show your personality in a way that your resume couldn't. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, okay, in this day and age of LinkedIn and these other tools, why am I still being asked to provide a cover letter? And you're right, LinkedIn has largely replaced the need for a cover letter in the traditional sense. However, most people are not using LinkedIn to its fullest potential in that regard. But ultimately, the cover letter's purpose is to show an employer or a hiring manager why you can solve their problem. More on that in a little bit. If you need any help with your cover letter or other aspects of the hiring process, that's what I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. It is loaded with tips and tricks on how to get noticed by recruiters, how to get through the interviewing process, and how to ultimately land your dream job. I also have a training called the Ultimate Layoff Bootcamp. It is 7 hours of dedicated training from an insider's perspective on how large companies hire. Everything from submitting your resume, going through each step of the hiring process, and ultimately landing your dream job. It's a really robust training, and if you're struggling with getting hired, maybe check that out as well. I'll leave a link for that. Now, cover letters, just like your resume, are a double-edged sword. They can help get you across the finish line in a tight race, or they can actually hurt you. So let's talk about some of those mistakes that job seekers make with their cover letters. Mistake number one is not solving the business problem. If you think about it, every job that's out there exists because there's something that needs to be done in a company, and we need somebody to actually do it. Companies don't just create jobs to give you a chance to earn a living. There's actually a purpose behind it. So they create these roles to solve legitimate and pressing business problems. Now, astute candidates recognize what those problems are, and then they cater their skill set in order to help solve those problems. So think in terms of what the business problem is and how you can solve them, and that's what the cover letter should highlight. Because if you're not doing that, chances are you're doing mistake number two. You're giving us a career summary. If you're simply providing a career summary, you're missing the point of what the cover letter is for. I already have a resume. I don't need you to rehash it again in another letter format. And you should tell me some experiences that you have as they relate to the position that I'm trying to fill in a way that's not apparent on your resume. But by just rehashing your resume and your cover letter, it just means that I'm going to skip by it and not even bother reading it. Mistake number three is explaining why the role would help your career. Remember, you're here to solve the business's problem. Again, and this may sound harsh, we're not here to provide you an opportunity to earn a living. We're here to hire you for a specific business problem. It just so happens that you can earn a living doing it. So if you're focused on why you're going to benefit and not the other way around, you've got it all wrong. And yes, you should be benefiting too, and you should be getting paid a fair wage. I think that goes without saying. But sell your problem-solving skills to us instead of what the company can do for you. Number four is making it too wordy. Listen, as a recruiter who's worked for major corporations, I can tell you we get a lot of applications. We simply don't have time to read long, wordy documents. And I'm going to be perfectly candid with you. If you send me a novel, there's a very slim chance that I'm actually going to take the time to read it. Remember, a good cover letter is short, sweet, and to the point. You want to make it as easy for me to digest it and pick up a phone to call you. Don't make my job harder than it needs to be. Number 5 is having grammatical or editing errors. Just like your resume, your cover letter is an extension of you. Editing errors, spelling mistakes, and grammatical issues just reflect poorly on you. And if I see those things in your cover letter, I'm going to assume that you have a lack of attention to detail, or worse, you lack the skills necessary to communicate effectively in a business setting. You could have the perfect skills and experiences to help solve my problems, but still be skipped over because of proofreading issues. Remember, spell check is your friend. Mistake number 6 is getting the wrong job title, or even worse, the wrong company name. If you're going to send a document over, make sure that you have the right details. Triple check that you've got the right company name, the right job title, and if possible, try to find the right hiring authority. I've seen people make these mistakes countless times, and it never bodes well for my first impression on the candidate. There's just no excuse to not get the job title or the company name right. Now, taking that a step further, I'd also suggest going into LinkedIn and making a reasonable effort to try to find the right hiring authority. If you can't find the right person, just keep it generic and address the entire hiring team. Something to the effect of, "Dear hiring team." It's better to play it safe than to guess. The next mistake that I want to talk about is sending over a generic cover letter. I can always tell when a candidate's sending me a generic cover letter. There's nothing specific in the letter itself that suggests that you even took the time to read my job description. And if you're making this mistake, you're probably making some of the other mistakes earlier in the list. So it's worth spending a few minutes to customize and personalize your message specific to that role, especially on jobs that you're particularly interested in. If you're going to send a generic cover letter, you're better off not sending one at all. Instead, spend a few minutes personalizing your message. Really look at the job description and try to pull out some key details. Maybe include a short anecdote about a specific experience that you had that relates to my job. But sending a generic cover letter just isn't gonna cut it, and it's probably gonna do you more harm than good. In fact, I've seen hiring managers call out some of these mistakes before, and it's just not worth giving them any ammunition. Mistake number 8 is using fluffy terms. Now, I also talked about this in a recent resume video, but using the generic fluff is never a winning strategy. If you're putting in generic business speak stuff, it's just never going to come across that you actually impacted the business in any meaningful way. Because stating things like "you're a team player" doesn't actually prove that you're a team player. You're just saying that. Instead, back it up with some facts about, yeah, here's an example where I was a team player. Now, of course, make sure that that aspect of the job is really important to the position. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting valuable real estate space. But the point is, we don't want to see generic business speak. If you're sending over a cover letter, just spend a few minutes extra to really craft something that's catered towards the job. Because it could mean the difference between getting selected in a very close race, so you want to give yourself every advantage possible. Now that you know some things to avoid, when should you use a cover letter? I would suggest including a cover letter anytime you have the option to, because a finely crafted cover letter is another data point for a hiring team to use in order to make a decision on you. Hey, if you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up because that helps other people find the content that they need for their job search. Also consider subscribing because I put out weekly videos and give you the latest tips and tricks on how to get noticed by recruiters and get through that whole hiring process. You're not going to want to miss a video. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you on the next one.